this creative side has always been in me, but it was like stifled. So when I was at uni, I had a dental blog, and it was completely anonymous. Like, my name was never published, and I spoke about other dentists on that blog because I was so afraid to show myself that I had to show other people instead. I was so crazy about keeping it secret. Like, I didn't want anyone to know.
I'd love to start with a bio for you, the bio that you have out there, which is, I spent most of my life doing everything you're supposed to do, but I wasn't happy. Go figure. Yeah. It's when I began to unravel the noise, societal pressures, false beliefs, and unrealistic expectations that I began to see myself and the world more clearly. I realized that I valued a simple life filled with joy. The reason why I highlight that is because it was a common experience and something that I've also experienced in my own way. How did you come to that conclusion of unraveling that ball?
Yeah, I think it's a common experience for a lot of people in their 20s, especially like since I started YouTube. I feel like a lot of people seem to relate to that. For me, it mostly revolved around my career, which I think, again, is very common. So when I said that I did everything that you're meant to do, I mean, you know, I was like very nerdy student. I was trying to get all the good grades. I was getting straight A's and won a load of awards. I went to the right university. I got the right degree, you know, things that everyone told me that I should do. That's what I went out and did. And I think I never felt pressure to do any of the things that I did. I wanted to do them, or at least I thought I wanted to do them. And so, like, you know, the dream of mine was I want to be a dentist. And that was since I was a kid. I wanted to be a dentist. And I thought that was my big dream. And so once I finally achieved it and I started working, I felt so empty. Like, I just felt so numb. I don't know. It was my very first day. I was at a great practice, like a lovely, lovely practice in London. My team was amazing. My commute from work, it was like a 15-minute drive. So everything was perfect, but I didn't enjoy it. And I knew on my first day, oh my God, is this what I've spent my whole life working towards? Like, what is this? Like, I don't know. It was like this moment of awakening. And I was just like, I don't know what's next. Like, I have no idea. But that's when I realized that I had probably spent most of my life working towards something that wasn't really authentic to me. I just didn't know it up until then. Yeah, and so I guess that's the main pivotal moment where I realized actually a lot of what I believed came from the rest of the world, like expectations from society, pressures, cultural things, just everything that wasn't me. And that was like the first time where I actually asked myself, okay, so if this isn't me, what is? And that's where it all kind of began.
Did you find any joy from the process of trying to become a dentist?
To some degree, yeah and no. I don't know if it was genuine joy. I found a lot of happiness. So I talk about this a lot on my channel. I think there's a difference between happiness and joy. I found a lot of happiness as a dentist. So every time I got, you know, a straight A star, or, you know, won an award, or, you know, even the day that I found out I was a dentist, or when I walked up on the stage and collected my degree, those were happy moments. And I was on cloud nine. You know, back then I thought, oh, the day that I qualified is going to be the happiest day of my life. And it was one of the happiest days of my life, because I think anytime you achieve anything, you're going to feel good about it. You know, you're going to get that dopamine hit. You've just achieved something that you've spent time working towards. So of course you're going to feel good about it. So I definitely felt happiness. Joy, I don't know. I don't think I was tuned into joy very much when I was trying to be a dentist. I think I was just so goal focused. And that's what I think of as happiness. I think happiness is more something that we work towards, and we kind of chase towards it because we want to be happy. Whereas joy, I think, is something that we think of in the present. And so I think I can only answer that question when I'm in the present. Like, am I feeling joy right now? Yes, but I can't tell you if I was feeling joy back on that journey, because I wasn't tuning into myself. I wasn't very self-aware. Like, I was just trying to get to that goalpost, and that was it, you know?
Yeah. How do we get better at tuning into joy?
I think slowing down is something that I always say to people. So, and this is, you know, what I talk about a lot on YouTube, is slowing down, because I was always the achievement-driven person. Like, I used to always say when I was growing up, like, I don't care about money. I just want to feel achievement. I want to feel success, and just that, sense of pride when you achieve something. And that meant that I was always chasing, so you'd reach one goal and then you'd reach the next, and you're thinking, okay, what should I do next? And I was just constantly going. And I think things like social media, technology, make it so much worse because we're surrounded by everybody else's achievements as well, and all of their goals and what they're doing. And so you just pile on all these goals on top of each other. And so I think it's really hard to find joy when you're constantly looking at goals and you're constantly looking ahead and trying to chase that. So for me, everything kind of changed when I started slowing down, and that meant, having really slow mornings. I used to be one of those people that woke up at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., went straight to work and just cracked on with my goals. Now my routine is so different. Like I still wake up early because I just naturally wake up quite early, but I spend my mornings drinking tea, doing yoga, reading, journaling, and just not having this sense of urgency to just work on my goals or to just work in general. And I think when you slow down, you can tune into yourself, and you can just reflect more and understand what brings you joy.
I love the breakdown there. I've experienced moments in my own life where I was living a slow life and I felt joy. And then there are moments in my life when I've been living a fast life, to others it might seem, but also experiencing joy. How do you reconcile like those who go on social media or put themselves out on social media and are feeling joy from that process?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's completely normal. I feel a lot of joy from doing YouTube, but I think people get confused whenever I say like slow down, or whenever I talk about like this concept of like slow living, because it is actually a concept. I think people think about not laziness, but like not doing anything. But that's not what it's about. It's about going at life at your own pace. So if your own natural pace is, I want to hit these goals, and yes, I want to show up on YouTube every single week, that's fine, like I'm still somebody who is very motivated to do things. I actually do show up on YouTube pretty much every single week, and people are shocked by that, consistency. But that's my natural pace, and I know that's my natural pace now because like, I know what, it's like you said, you feel joy from doing it. So that's right for you. And equally, when you slow down, that's also right for you. And there's no like right answer for that. It's just like tuning into yourself and understanding that, okay, this is my pace, not the pace that society has set for me,
Yeah. What I love about your message so much is how we often don't stop to think about the values that our society places on us.
Yeah.
We just accept it. And there needs to be some level of, all right, this is what I was born into, but this is what I believe is different or not about the things that I'm living. And so that's why I really appreciate what you do and what you talk about. How did it feel when Matt Diavella shared your channel, and what did that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, that was a wild moment. And I think I still remember it so clearly because it was the evening time in the UK, he's in the US. And I was talking to my husband that very evening, saying to him, like, I just don't know if YouTube's right for me. Like, I'm not really getting any signals that this is going anywhere. I've been working really hard. Like, I might just stop it now. And then I got that tweet and I was like, oh my God. And it was crazy because, I mean, I was very, very small back then. I mean, I think my channel was maybe like 700 subscribers. And this was a guy with like 2 million, 3 million subscribers. And you usually think like, the big dogs don't usually think of the little dogs. They're just in their, own world with all the other big dogs. So you just never think things like that will happen. And I think it just made me really like, I really admire his work and what he does. And it just made me admire him even more to know that he was looking out for smaller YouTubers. And it was just a really cool moment. It was crazy. It was just, my heart really just did warm up completely.
What changed?
I think it validated me a lot. I know it shouldn't. I know you're not meant to say those things, but it definitely was a validating experience. And it made me feel like, okay, I'm actually good at this, you know? Like, maybe it's not in my head anymore. Maybe I can actually do this. Because he's a filmmaker as well. This isn't just any YouTuber. This is like a filmmaker that felt so legit. So definitely it was validating. My subscribers went up. So I went from like 800 to 3,000 pretty much overnight, which I know seems like a small thing, but anyone who is trying to grow on YouTube will probably realize, like, actually that's a lot. And I feel like it made me more open to building relationships with other YouTubers. So since then, I've also done a video with Matt, Lana, Blakely, and Ali Abdal, and I don't think I would have even thought to reach out to them had I not had that experience where I connected with Matt before. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, something you've talked about on your channel before is the social anxiety that you feel. Oh, how is operating on YouTube and putting yourself out there online different than a social anxiety that you might or might not feel in person meeting people?
Yeah, I actually find it a lot easier to do online. And I actually find a lot of people who have any form of anxiety, a lot of them are actually online, because I just find that when I am, you know, in a massive group of people in real life, I tend to overthink very quickly. And usually when I'm in big crowds, it usually means I'm in an environment that's not very natural to me. Like, I'm quite a homebody. I like being in my own space. So if I'm ever in big crowds, that's not really where I thrive. Whereas when I'm on the internet and I'm, you know, sharing topics that are something that, you know, they're things that are important to me, that's where I thrive. So it's easier for me to then show up. So I don't really get that much anxiety about being online. Obviously I had normal nerves when I first started. I think I wouldn't call that social anxiety. I think that was just that little fear that you get when you're doing something new and you're putting yourself out there, and it's really scary. But I think at that point I was kind of like, I think I'd got to the point where I was in life, you know, like, why am I letting anyone else stop me from living my life, you know? I think it was like the pandemic at the time, and I was out of work for about 8 months, and I was just getting irritated with myself for letting society dictate what I do, or letting other people dictate what I do. So I was kind of just like in this phase where I was like, do you know what, screw the world, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And that's why I was really easily able to overcome that fear, which I think younger me probably wouldn't be able to.
How has putting yourself out online made you more yourself, or more comfortable being yourself not online?
Oh my God, it's completely changed me. I think anyone who knows me in real life can vouch for this. Like, I have become so much more confident, and just more confident, not even just like talking to people, but just showing up as I am with every single person that I come across. So like, even my husband, he has now seen a more authentic side of me from me doing YouTube, because I have this confidence that has come out from doing my own thing that, you know, doesn't really involve anybody else in my life. So yeah, it's been like, I don't know. I think anytime you create online, or just create in general, it's like a soul searching experience, and you figure out things about yourself. Like, I think that's true for anybody who creates, whether it's like art, music, anyone. It's just a way of finding yourself, right? So when you find yourself, I feel like you're able to be more confident, and it definitely shows up in every area of your life.
Yeah, I've had the exact same experience just from having these conversations. What do you think actually changes you when you create, or when you seek more for your soul? Like, what is actually happening to make you more confident?
I think when you turn from like being a consumer to a creator, you're kind of like having to shut out the rest of the noise. You know what I mean? So when you're a consumer, you're taking in that noise, you're internalizing everything you read or listen to. But when you're a creator, you have to shut that all off, because you want to create something that's your own, and you can't have the thoughts of others when you're doing that. So it really just, it puts you like in your own little space, and you can shut the noise out and really tune into your own voice and hear yourself think. And that's when you kind of understand what you stand for, what your viewpoints are, what your opinions are. And once you can understand those things in terms of your creations, it's then easier to kind of go offline and, again, share your viewpoints with your family and your friends, and actually have conversations that are your own thoughts, rather than you just repeating thoughts that you've read somewhere else. And I think that's what happened for me anyway.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. What have you found to be some of the best ways to take the ideas in your head and make them into a video or make them into writing? Like, how do you go about turning that process and making that process a reality?
I mean, I'm always writing, so I journal most days, or I'm like writing most days. But I don't know. I think the beauty of this is a little bit nerdy, but I think the beauty of me being a dentist was like I got really good at learning and making connections between things, because that's how I had to learn, you know? So I've kind of taken that in this creator world, and every time I consume, I'm very good at linking things back to my own experiences, and you know, like any articles or anything that I consume, I'm good at like putting it together. And I literally make mind maps out of things and just try and mind map ideas. Honestly, I do out of paper. I just mind map all these ideas that I have. And yeah, that's how like a story comes alive. And that's how YouTube videos come about. Or sometimes it's just that I've seen another YouTube video idea and I'm like, oh, I really like that. And that really resonates with something that I have experienced. And then I'll make that. So it really does vary between the two. But yeah. It's a bit of a messy process. I'm not that good at it, like in terms of having this clear structure where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this every day, or do you know what I mean? I'm just a bit all over the place.
With the mind maps, like what exactly does that look like? How do you go about creating that?
So I'll usually have like a title in my brain. Like usually it's the titles that come to me first, and I'll just like jot that out in the middle. And I like over the course of a month, we'll just start adding to it. So like anything that I read that's kind of related to that idea in any way, like I'll jot down. So I recently had a video called Stop Trying So Hard. And it was based on my experience of trying so hard. Like I realized that I was trying so hard with YouTube, and it was this really frustrating process. So I kind of just wrote that idea down because I was like, maybe I can make a video out of that. And I kind of just left it there in the middle of the paper. And then over time, I actually started noticing more ideas related to this. So things like the backwards law or the 80% rule and things like that were not necessarily saying stop trying so hard, but they related to this idea of stop trying so hard. And that's how that video came about. So I find like I don't usually sit down and script and write a video in one go. Usually it's like I come up with the idea and I just add to it over time, and eventually it's got enough meat that it can be a video. How
long is that process usually?
Oh gosh, ages. I actually hate YouTube scripting because it takes me ages. Honestly, I don't know how long it takes me. Hours probably. I'm embarrassed to say it, to be honest.
Why?
Because I feel like with YouTube, I think some people think, you know, when you watch a YouTube video that like that person's just sat down and they're just sharing their thoughts and it's like not that filtered. But for me, like I'm quite an overthinker as well. So I think a lot about a lot of things. And so that process of coming up with an idea and writing it all out, like it is just so messy. And then I'm just trying to like clear my thoughts. And it's kind of like this journaling experience really whenever I write a script, because I process like a lot of things. And at the end, I feel really good. And so every time you see a video that I put out, it's usually like something that I am trying to process myself. And I've gone through this process, which really helps me to get to this like message at the end of it.
Yeah, it was so funny because I watched or listened to the Q&A that you did recently, and you were talking at the end and you were saying, yeah, this has been an hour of me talking, and it was a 20-minute video, and I'm like, whoa, I want to hear the other 40 minutes.
Well, to be fair, with the Q&A, I had to cut out so many questions because I was like, wow, I talk so much. And I'm not joking, my throat was so dry at the end of it. I was like, wow, I can actually talk for days.
But you mentioned the overthinking piece, and especially the overthinking about the things we've created. And I've found this, I don't really have that as much, but I have found in some instances where I'll do an interview and my perception of the interview will be wildly different right after doing it versus 3 months after watching it. And I'm like, how could my mind play such tricks on me in that moment to make me believe that it wasn't good or that I didn't have a good performance? It's like, your mind just like has all these thoughts, and so many of them, I feel, from my own perspective, we have to 100%, discard.
Yeah.
So like, how does that relate to your own journey of overthinking?
I mean, I think when people talk about overthinking, they usually think it's a bad thing, which it is to some degree if it holds you back from doing the things that you want to do. But I've actually found that when I embrace overthinking, like it's actually a good thing, because I think I think a lot of people go through life and, you know, like we consume tweets and threads and Instagram posts, and we don't think that much about it. And we don't have this like sense of self-awareness or critical thinking, which I think is so important when you're surrounded by so much noise. So I actually really appreciate the fact that I overthink, because I feel like that's helped me to, you know, understand what about the noise I like and what I don't like. And that's actually very helpful. Whereas I'd rather that than be completely oblivious and just just consume everything and not think about it and not reflect and analyze, like, is this right? Is this wrong? So I actually now embrace my overthinking side a lot more. I think obviously when it's affecting my ability to create, like if I'm being so hard on myself that I don't create, then obviously it's gone too far. And then I'm like, okay, I need to kind of just calm this down a little bit. But I think you can also have healthy overthinking. Oh, in my opinion, I could be completely wrong. But for me, I sometimes think it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, well, your overthinking leads you to be more intentional about the things you actually want to put out there. But how has your perception of the videos that you've created been different
Changed
over a period of time?
Do you know what the worst part is when I look back at old videos, it's always the color grading that I'm shocked at. And I'm like, wow, was I blind when I color graded that footage? Because it looks awful. But I actually don't go back and listen to any of my videos. Like once it's out, it's out. I don't actually ever listen again. I sometimes read the scripts, but I don't ever watch them. So I can't even answer that question.
Why not?
I don't really know what's to be gained from it. I'd rather kind of just focus on the next one really than, you know, obsess over detail. Because I know anytime I'm going to look at an old video, of course there's going to be things that need to change or improve. But I know that already. I don't need to watch an old video to remind myself of that. And it's just a painful reminder that I don't really need, you know. And I still don't like watching myself. Still, you know, I've been doing YouTube for almost 2 years. I still don't enjoy watching myself. So I don't want to put myself through that experience of forcing myself to watch myself outside of editing.
It is an interesting, wild experience that we kind of take for granted. And we often do this with technology whenever it comes about. People have never, in all of our evolution, we've never been able to see ourselves and hear ourselves as much as we currently do. It's like, but now we accept it as normal. And then our own view and perception of ourselves is, we have a clearer picture of what that looks like than ever before in human history, thanks to technology, which has some positives and it has some negatives. How do you think about, you're putting yourself out online, and even in the editing process, you're thinking about how you sound, what the world looks like, how you look in this image and this, like, you have more focus on yourself than any person has really ever had in human history compared to previous generations. How does that land for you, and do you think about that at all when creating online?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, no, I actually don't think about that. I think I've gotten really good at tuning myself out when I'm editing, so I don't even really see myself. I'm looking at the technical things, so I'm looking at the colors on the screen as opposed to what I actually look like, and I'm like listening to, you know, the pace of the way I'm speaking rather than the way I actually sound. Like, I'm not really paying much detail to myself. I mean, before I film, of course, I'm like, okay, I need to put some makeup on. I need my hair to look okay. Of course I do those things. But once things are actually filmed, like, I kind of just go into that process of editing, and that's all I think about. I don't really overthink myself much past that point. But like you said, there's good things and bad things about this whole process. Like, I used to talk really fast. I think right now I'm still talking quite fast, but I used to talk a lot faster than this. And I think, you know, when I was editing myself, I realized, like, wow, there's no pace this video. I'm just talking 100 miles per hour. Like, no one's going to be able to follow this. And so I've become more conscious of that in real life. And, you know, I've slowed down the way that I talk. And even my parents have picked up on that. And I think it's actually quite nice. So, yeah, like you said, there's definitely some good things and bad things to that being true.
I'd love to talk to you about some quotes you've got here. And
oh, gosh.
I pulled out some from your videos. And honestly, like, I was taken aback a number of times by your writing and the things you've said. And it just made me look at life a little differently. And that was and that's the greatest thing, a gift someone can give to you. So let's dive into them, and hopefully more people can hear them or listen to them as well. And so first one here, there are so many things we can't see, but we still believe in. Love is something you feel, but you don't see. And I think you related that to spirituality or God in some respect. And I was like, I've never thought about that. There are so many things we can't see, but we still believe in.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I guess, I was talking about religion and spirituality at that point. But I think the problem with our world, especially with Instagram, we're very focused on the way things look. Like everything is about, the surface level things. And I've noticed that a lot in everyone. Like whenever some of my friends talk about relationships and dating, and they talk about, the perfect guy, they focus on what they want that relationship to look like, Like I want a guy who is also career driven, and we're going to be like this power couple and all these things. And it's all about really images, like everything, but it's not about how do I want to feel in that relationship. Like I want to feel safe and loved and secure. And I think so much of our life would change if we focused on how things felt rather than how they looked. And I know I'm online, but I mean, most of my life is actually offline. Like I don't share like 99.9% of my life because I like it that way. Like I'm focusing on how things feel. If I put everything online, I think focus on how it looked, because naturally you're showing things to the world, and you have to think about how things look. But I think the best things in life aren't, something you see. They're what you experience and what you actually feel on the inside. And that's what I try to focus on a lot.
How can we push people to think more about how things feel? And why has it been a priority for society to put on a pedestal how things look?
I think it's not society's fault. I think it's just really hard when you've got these apps that are literally about how things look. And when you see how things look, you automatically assume they also feel good. You automatically think, okay, if this guy has got millions and he's driving this fancy car and he's got X, Y, and Z, he's bound to feel amazing. He's probably the happiest guy on earth. But actually, that's not true. There's a lot of really wealthy people who are really depressed and really anxious. So I think it's hard because these apps do make you compare your life with theirs, and all you are comparing is that image. So it's very easy to then get wrapped up in the way things look, because you're thinking, okay, my life should look like that. But what you're not thinking is my life should feel like that, because you don't know what that feels like. So I think it's really hard, and I don't really know how we can help people to get around it. I think it's really up to individuals to kind of go through that process of like finding self-awareness and being able to tune into their own feelings to understand, okay, I might have all these things, but I don't feel good on the inside. Or, I don't have all these things, but maybe having these things won't make me any happier. Like I need to do the inner work. So I don't know. It's really hard. I'm not a therapist at all, so I feel like I can't really answer these questions, but yeah, it is hard when you're surrounded by images everywhere, like it's just so hard. There's just constant images, constant words. And, I've actually got a video coming out. I think it's this weekend, actually. It's called This Is Better Than a Dream Board. And the whole basis of that video is dream boards are great because they're really inspiring, really motivating. But a lot of the time people have images that they found on social media, and they end up obsessing over somebody else's life and how it looks. And they're not really tuning inwards. And I don't think that's the way to live your best life, by focusing on images. I think you can live your best life by tuning inwards and thinking, okay, how do I feel more joy in my day? Like that's going to take you further than focusing on these images that we're surrounded by all the time anyway.
What would be on your feeling board?
So mine are two value, so joy and authenticity, and they drive pretty much every single thing I do. That's just how I show up. So when I was navigating a career change, I was thinking, okay, is this bringing me joy? When I was trying to show up online and, when I'm thinking about the content I make, I'm always asking myself, okay, is this authentic? If it's not going to happen, So yeah, everything is just about those two kind of words or concepts or values rather than images or anything else. And that's what I'm constantly thinking about.
So, okay, I want to zoom in on the authentic piece, because authenticity is one of these things where we are different people based on different circumstances inherently. Yeah. Like, you're going to talk to your parents differently than you're going to talk in this interview versus you're going to talk to a 5-year-old. And some of this is like natural, some of this, how do you figure out that balance of when you're being authentic versus when you're not?
See, I don't think, even if you speak differently to your parents and your like friends or, you know, like a 5-year-old, I don't think that's inauthentic. I think it's just channeling your authenticity in a way that they can understand. You know what I mean? So I think so long as you're acting in alignment with your values, I think you will always be authentic. There's a lot of people like who say, you know, I really value like family over career, and yet their actions just reflect they focus on the career over the family. So I think authenticity is just that your actions align with the values that you really care about. And I think it's fine to change the way that you speak to people, or like change your tone or the way you communicate. But I think so long as what you believe in is actually what you do and you stand firm on that, you will always be authentic.
Why is it so important for you that your career is not the focal point of your life? This is a quote from you. I just want to highlight it.
Yeah.
This was the first year where I tried to manage YouTube alongside a full-time job, and I struggled a lot. I made less time for my family, friends, yoga, going outside, and me time. It sucks because as much as I love my job, I don't want my career to be the focal point of my life.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not my value, you know? So when I sit down and think what I really care about, like, career is only important to me because it sustains everything else that I want to do, you know? Like, I want to be able to have a family. I want to be able to travel, you know, a reasonable amount. I don't need to travel like crazy, but a reasonable amount. And, you know, I want to just basically be stable enough that I don't have stress in my life, like financial stress anyway. So long as I have that, I think I will, you know, I'm quite content in life. The problem is with careers is it's very easy to start chasing that next goalpost. And to be honest, that's something that I've had to really check in with myself, because when I was a dentist, it was super, super easy because I didn't really enjoy that job that much. So it was very easy to kind of like switch off and accept mentally, I'm not going to be, you know, the highest earning dentist by a mile off because I'm not going to put enough into it. And I accepted that, and I had the best work-life balance you could imagine. I was actually very happy. You know, even though I wasn't in a career that I necessarily loved, I was actually very happy because I had the best work-life balance. I understood what my values were, and, you know, my life reflected that. The moment I switched my career and I went into something I actually enjoyed, it was very hard. I had to like really force myself to kind of stop and be like, okay, you're working too hard now. You need to like chill out and stop trying to chase these goals. Even with YouTube, you know, I love YouTube, but again, that's really dangerous because it's so easy to then obsess over metrics and to obsess over wanting to grow. And it's not really something I actually care about, but it's just easy to get wrapped up in because I enjoy it. So yeah, it's just not one of my values. You know, family and, you know, health and things like that are way, way more important to me. Careers don't really come close because I know very successful people whose life, you know, I don't want their life. Like, I look at them and I'm like, I don't want their life at all. I know somebody who's very, very successful who has had, you know, quite a few heart attacks, and his family is very dispersed because they've all got a lot of money and they, you know, they can live in different places. It's not really the life that I want at all. So I think it's just, I've been very lucky to see people in very different situations, and that's opened my eyes to what I want and what I don't want, you know. And if I was to look at anyone and say, okay, in terms of the way things look, their life is what I want, it's actually my cousin. She's got 2 twin boys, and they've got a very like simple life, but it's very joyful. And, you know, one of the best days of my life was actually when I spent it with them and I was looking after the twins and I was reading them bedtime stories, and it was just very wholesome, and it just filled me with so much joy. And so for me, that really says it all. You know, if that's a day that brings me so much joy, it's obviously not got much to do with career, you know?
Absolutely. Well, what's the kindest thing anyone's ever done for you?
Oh, that's a really hard question. The kindest thing anyone's ever done for me. Oh gosh, I'm struggling to even think. I think that's a really hard question. I can't even answer it. I feel awful because I'm thinking there's probably so many things that people have done for me. Do you know, I think probably the most thoughtful thing that anyone's done for me, it's the only thing that comes to mind, is my husband, when he went to India. This was before we got married. My grandparents had also gone to India at the same time, and on my birthday he drove out to go see them, and it was the first time they ever met, and he just decided to do that on my birthday, and it was just one moment that made me cry. I wasn't there, I didn't get to see them meet, but just knowing that he wanted to see my grandparents on my birthday because he couldn't celebrate with me in person was just like, it was really nice, and I actually cried. I was like, that is just so nice. So that's the only thing I can think of, but I know there's just so many kind things that have been done for me, so I don't know. It's just really hard to think on the spot.
No, totally. I love that answer, and I love how it wasn't necessary. You weren't even there to experience it, and you could still feel incredible joy from it. There's something beautiful about that.
Yes, exactly. And I find that a lot. Like, I'm a really highly empathetic person. I really do absorb the feelings of other people a lot. Like, it's probably not great. So when I know that other people are happy, I feel really happy. So I could imagine that my grandma was really, really happy, and that just made me feel so happy. This happens to my grandma as well, where she feels people so deeply. Like, she'll watch something on the news and it'll be really negative, and then she'll start feeling bad for those people. Oh my God, yes.
What advice would you have for her to maybe separate herself from that? Or should she even what do you think about that?
So I'm like your grandma. I had to cut out the news. I don't watch the news anymore. I physically can't watch it. It really makes me feel so anxious and sometimes depressed. So I don't watch the news anymore. So that's the first piece of advice I'd give. But otherwise, I really struggle with this. I don't really have an answer. And I think it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes you can connect with people on a deeper level because of it. Obviously, it's unhealthy when you're absorbing everyone's feelings. So if my family or my husband's having a bad day, I then get really low because it's I'm feeling everything they're feeling, and it's not great. And I've yet to figure out how to separate myself from that. But hopefully I'll get there.
I try to talk to her about meditation and how meditations help me with separating myself from the situations that come into me, but I haven't really found anything that really hits, but I think it's just in her at a deep level. Yeah,
definitely. I think some people are just very empathetic. And that was another thing that made it really hard as a dentist as well. When I was seeing certain patients, it was really hard to have that separation between okay, I shouldn't be getting involved in, what's going on personally. And I need to have that professional aspect where I'm just shutting off. But I found that quite difficult.
How do you think about interacting with other people's energy? Where we live in a world where you go outside and you have a conversation with someone and you're taking in their energy, and it seems like you like being alone and you spend a lot of time alone reflecting, but I'm curious how you think about that, where negative energy comes into you or positive. How do you deal with other people's energy?
I think when it's positive energy, it's great. When it's negative energy, I think it's really difficult. I do actually believe that toxic positivity is a thing. You can never expect people to have high energy or be positive all the time. And I think it's almost unhealthy to kind of pressure anyone to feel like that. Negative energy is a difficult one. And I would say if it's someone you're close enough to, obviously, I don't mind taking on that energy sometimes, but I think I have to have that boundary at some point if it's just too much and it's really just affecting my day-to-day life. In which case, I kind of have to say, I don't think I'm the right person to be sharing with this anymore. It's kind of affecting me as well. Maybe you should speak to someone who, actually gets paid to listen to these things when it's too negative and it's for a prolonged period. Because also, if you're not the best person to help them, then you're not doing them any favors by trying to be that person who is there for them, because you're not really going to help them with it,
Yeah, and especially being on YouTube, so much energy is being thrown your way, right? So how do you deal with that?
With. Yeah, I struggle with this a lot because I get a lot of DMs from people because one of my most popular videos is about I have no friends. Another one is I wasted my 20s. I've got videos on career changes and things like that. And these are all very real things that people are going through. And so I get a lot of DMs for advice. And obviously I feel humbled that people come to me for advice, and that's really sweet, but I also find it difficult because I can only ever share my own experiences. That's all I've got to give. I'm not a professional. Like, I don't have the tools and resources to actually help these people. I can only share my experiences, and I've already done that through the video. So beyond that video, there's not much more I can really offer. And so I actually have to be really honest with them and just say, here's my playlist, so you can watch these videos, and hopefully makes you realize that you're not alone. But beyond that, I can't really help you get out of that space. And that's something that, you need to speak to someone in your own life who actually knows you better, or speak to a therapist. So yeah, I end up saying things like that because I just don't feel like I'm the right person to go to for advice. And also I feel sad because I wish they felt like they had someone in their real life to turn to. And I think a lot of people do, but they underestimate them and think that they can't go and open up to those people. And so I try to encourage people as well to just give someone in their real life a chance, because sometimes people can surprise you.
Why are we more lonely than ever, even though it seems like we're more connected than ever?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something that I think about a lot. And I think there's multiple reasons. So I think one reason that I've had to reflect on in my own life is my expectations about connection were very, very skewed. I was watching TV shows, like I watched Friends all the time, movies, and that portrayed what I thought relationships and friendships should look like. And I think in the real world, it's, not always the most realistic thing. So I think some people, and for me for sure, loneliness happened a lot because reality didn't meet my expectations. And so, when my social life didn't match what I thought it did, I just felt very lonely, and I felt so like what's happening? Why does my life not look like that? Again, it's about how things look rather than how they feel, right? I think also social media, of course, I don't think people make as much of an effort in terms of connecting with people. I think it's so easy to like a photo and comment on a post and feel like you're contributing to your friendship or relationship, but it's not really doing much. And I think that's the problem with social media. It focuses, like I said, on the superficial rather than how are people actually feeling, those photos allow you to have a very superficial conversation, but what opens up the door to actually talk about our feelings? None of social media really allows us to do that, not much anyway. And I think that, definitely contributes to loneliness as well. And I think, again, with social media, there's a pressure to always look happy, always look like you're successful, always look like you've got things figured out. And so we're all doing that. But on the inside, we all feel behind. We all feel lost. We all feel a little bit lonely. And we think we have to meet that image that we see on social media. So we try and maintain that as well outside in the real world rather than really opening up and connecting and being vulnerable. And I think vulnerability is just something that not many people embrace as much now. And it's hard. It is really hard.
What can you say to make or help people put themselves out there and be more vulnerable, even if it's just in the day-to-day?
So Brene Brown is someone who really, she just changed my life with some of the things that she said. And something that she said is that if you want to fit in, or if you want to belong, then fitting in is never going to do that, because you're trying to be someone else in order to fit in. So you're never going to belong. Whereas when you embrace yourself, your authenticity, and you're vulnerable by being you, that's the only way you're ever going to achieve true belonging, because that's actually you. And that's always stuck with me. And that's one of the reasons why authenticity is such an important value that I follow, because I know that's the path to connection and meaningful relationships.
It's beautiful. How does it feel when I say this quote from you? I remember when I first started making YouTube videos. I started off with skincare videos, but moved towards deeper topics that meant more to me. Back then, someone told me I might struggle to grow. They said that people are only after content that helps them with wealth, fitness, and productivity, and that more intentional content wouldn't gain any traction. It was a comment that made me feel empty. How does that land on you today after so many YouTube videos and a clear message that has hit people at a deep level?
I mean, I still struggle with it, to be honest with you, because, you know, I still do see other creators who do make fitness videos or do make videos on, you know, this is how I'm going to be a millionaire, and they do really well. And so I sometimes do actually, and I hate myself for this, I do sometimes compare myself and I think, oh gosh, am I making content that isn't really what people want? But then also I just have to go to the comment section and then, you know, see that it's resonated with even just one person. And I think that is enough. I think the numbers are sometimes something that we chase so much, and it's really easy to kind of get lost in it. But when I think about how many views my channel has had, like I think it's had like 1.5 million views or like something crazy. Like I can't even imagine what that looks like. I can't even imagine what a room full of that many people look like. So it's just, yeah, it is hard. Because sometimes I still get comments like, oh, she's just talking about her experiences to make money on YouTube. And I wish I could say to them, look, if I wanted to make a lot of money on YouTube, this is not what I'd be talking about. Like, this is not the right niche to be in. But I think it's just nice to kind of connect with people. And I think I had so many self-doubts when I was younger that no one was going to understand me, that I was kind of like alone in the world in a lot of the ways that I was feeling. And I never thought I would find my people. You know, I've never really connected with that many people in my real life. So to kind of go online and to be able to like share my thoughts and for it to resonate with people kind of makes me feel like I do belong. And it's a really nice feeling. And it's not even in the sense like, oh, you know, I've got these subscribers, like I'm validated now. Like, no, like even when I had, you know, like 100 followers, it was still really nice to know that actually somebody resonates with my thoughts. That just makes you feel less alone and makes you feel more human, you know?
What do you wish that young woman knew back then about feeling like no one understood her or feeling alone?
I guess I wish she knew that you have to give people a chance to get to know you, like embracing that vulnerability to kind of show yourself. Because when I was younger, I had such a facade on as well, you know, like my whole 6 years of university, I had such a hard like cover, you know, I was smiling all the time, I was talking really fast, I would always walk into the room and try and act tall, stand tall, makeup on, you know, wore nice clothes, and I always tried to look like I fit in and, you know, felt the part. And I never gave people a chance. So as much as I talk about, you know, I was lonely at uni and I didn't really have any friends, I actually take that upon myself. I wasn't vulnerable enough to let people get to know me. And, you know, how could I connect with people if that was the way? So I think you have to give people a chance to see the real you in order for them to connect with the real you.
It's almost like you block some part of that when you're not living a life that's authentic to you, right? Like you were trying to be a dentist, and at some point you realize like that's not really what's authentic to you at a deep level.
Yeah.
You didn't want to show people that or show yourself to people because you were like, I'm not, at a deep level, you knew you weren't comfortable with you. I relate to this strongly. I put out marketing content on Twitter when I started 2018, 2019. I didn't want anyone to know about it. If people in my personal life, it scared me. I was like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
But when you start doing things that are authentic to you, it's like you want to tell the world. You want people to see it. And it is more comfortable for people in your real life to see it, quote unquote, real life, because it's really you.
Yeah, 100%. Like even when I was at uni, like this creative side has always been in me, but it was like stifled. So when I was at uni, I had a dental blog and it was completely anonymous. Like my name was never published. And I spoke about other dentists on that blog because I was so afraid to show myself that I had to show other people instead. I was so crazy about keeping it secret. Like I didn't want anyone to know. Yeah, so it is, you're so right. And I think people from my, you know, old life would probably look at me on YouTube and be like, okay, like who is this person? Like I don't think I'm anywhere near what I was like at uni because I've understood myself, I've grown into myself, and that's all through authenticity and like uncovering those layers.
Well, I'm so grateful for the time here today. I mean, I wish we had more, and I wish we can go deeper in person someday on a lot of these topics. But I like to end these podcasts with a challenge, and I ask a challenge of the guests to talk about something we've spoke about or something we haven't, to give people an action step, something to do after this episode. Does a challenge come to mind from anything we've spoken about or something we haven't?
Yes, it does actually. It does. So I would give a challenge to everyone to figure out 2 core values that you want to live by. Rather than thinking about goals and images, what are 2 values that you want to live by?
I love that. Simple, short, precise, and if you figure that out, everything else can take care of itself.
Exactly.
Where can we send people to connect with you further?
My YouTube channel. So you just have to search Akta or Twitter or Instagram, but mostly my YouTube channel.
Amazing. They're all linked below. I highly recommend it. I love your videos so much, and they're amazing. And everyone check that out. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Danny. And thank you so much for reaching out to me, to be on this podcast. Even that was like a really humbling experience. So I really appreciate it.
Well, it lived up to the expectations and then some. So thank you so much.
Thank you.